So my brief history of my journey is that when I was 8 years old, I was in Peru, and my mom said, we're going to Disney World, and I said, yay! And we packed a lot of bags, for some reason, and I landed in Newark, New Jersey, and my mom said, we lied. We just didn't want you to freak out. We live here now. And I'm like, that was a shock, but my mom said, it's for your own good, like, things are better here. I was like, all right. And flash forward to me just, watching cartoons to learn English, because I didn't speak English, and English was my worst subject in Peru, and I was thrown here, and I'm like, I don't know how to speak anything. And so next thing I know, I am in going to high school, and when I got to high school, throughout that span of time, there's always that question, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. And then when I first started, it was like, I think my earliest memories, I wanted to be a scientist. I don't know what that meant, but I asked for a microscope for Christmas, and I was that kid, and my friends were like, oh, come on. And then I wanted to be like a fire department guy, like a firefighter, and then I wanted to be an inventor, and then I wanted to be an architect, because my brother was going to Pratt Institute here in Brooklyn, or not, we're not in Brooklyn now, but usually I am. And he went to Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, and he studied architecture, and he was always making these model, little tiny versions of big buildings, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to make little tiny versions of big things, and I like little people, in cars. I'm like, I want to do that, and he's 10 years older than me, so I was like, he was 19, and I'm there 10, just being like, that's what I want to do. I want to be an architect. And when I got to high school, my high school was really weird. My high school had basically an ability to study either, for my freshman year, I could pick to do one of several things. I could either do, there were a bunch of stuff, but I picked to do graphic design, kind of stuff. On one period a day, and I did that, and I was like, this is cool, but then I switched over to another class, and the other class was video and film, and I was like, that's interesting, and then I switched to another class, and eventually, sophomore year, I had to pick which was the class that I was enjoying the most, and I would end up doing that for the rest of my time in high school, more and more time as time went on. So I thought, well, I think I'm going to do AutoCAD, because I want to be my brother does all this AutoCAD, computer-assisted drafting, making buildings and stuff in the computer, and I was like, I could do that. I want to do that. And during my time in high school, I started doing that, but it was really boring. I got really bored really quickly, and I was like, but my teacher had this giant computer. This was 1996, 97, and he had this giant, massive computer in his desk that could. That had an 3D animation program called 3D Max, which I was like, what is that? I can things are in 3D, that's amazing, that's unbelievable. I was like, if I finish my work quickly, can I go and play around and just play around in that program? He's like, yeah, sure. So I would finish my work real quickly, go there, and every day I would just play around. Eventually I started making little animated things and little animated shorts, and I thought, well, that's what I want to do with my life. I want to make animations, because by being an animator, I can tell stories, and I was like, I figured it out. I know what I want to what do you want to do after college? I was like, I'm going to be a computer animator. Boom, that's it. I was a big Star Wars nerd, so I was like, I'm going to work on Star Wars. At the time they had made the announcement, they're going to make new Star Wars movies. I was like, oh, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work at Industrial Light and Magic and do the special effects for the next Star Wars movie. It's a dream come true. So I spent the rest of my time in high school doing animations and whatnot, and all of a sudden when I got to my senior year of high school, I found out that in order to be an animator, you have to go to art school. And I thought, what? I thought I just needed to learn computer things. I've been teaching myself computer things, and now I'm being told I need to do art things, and I was stressed out and I didn't know what to do. And at the time, this is right around Toy Story was coming out and 3D animation was becoming a thing. There were only 5 schools in all of the US that taught computer animation, only 5. One of them was Pratt, and then there was SVA and whatnot. And I thought, well, all right, so I need to know art all of a sudden. So my school was nice enough to say, well, we should probably have an art class anyway, so we're going to start an art class next year for you so that you can do art things. I was like, oh, awesome. And so I ended up going to my portfolio review at Pratt, and I was told that I was not good enough to go to Pratt because I have basically zero art experience. But I brought in a VHS tape and played them animated shorts that I had made on the computer in high school. And they were like, oh, all right, we're gonna let you in, but you're really gonna have to spend all summer drawing because all the kids here draw really well and you're gonna just suffer. And I thought, all right, I'll work it out. And so they let me in, I got accepted, I started Pratt. And my first day of school was it was one of those moments of your life where you just feel so inadequate for a multitude of reasons. I mean, everybody just looked way cooler than me. Everybody just, like, I would go to art class and people would just sit there, like, they were all the best artists of their high school. And they're there just like, yeah, looking at things and drawing, and I'm there like, oh, what am I gonna do? I'm not good at this. And I would go to like sculpture class and people would build all these people like this, and I'd be like, oh, I don't, It was just like a constant state of embarrassment for me. Like I was just like, what am I doing here? I don't belong here. And I thought, just try your best, man. And I would just, but the best part about being in that environment was that I was just like, man, that's cool. Like somebody was majoring in industrial design, and I'm like, man, that's cool. You're designing cars and stuff. That's amazing. And another friend would be like a photographer. I'm like, man, that's cool. You get to just press a button and boom, you're done. And he'd scream at me and tell me otherwise. But I got into photography seemed cool. So all the students at Pratt who I was like going to school with were like, decided I want to be an animator, so I'm going to take all my extracurricular classes in animation. And I said, I'm not going to do that. They were taking history of animation, traditional animation. I'm like, no, you know what? I'm just going to explore. I just want to play around. And so I ended up taking photography. I ended up taking film. I ended up taking graphic design as my extracurricular classes. And it was, one of the best decisions I ever made because when I left college, I had a computer, animation degree, and I had a pretty good demo reel to get jobs with, and it was really hard to break into the industry. But like getting into computer animation, especially back then when there weren't there weren't that many studios doing it. You could name all the studios in the U.S. that had jobs for computer animation, off the top, you could memorize them, like you memorize the capitals of all the capital cities of America. There were not that many. In between my junior and senior year of college, I was also in a place where I'm like, I need an internship. Like I should go out and get an internship. And I sent out I had to make a VHS tape of this is again this is 2003. This is before I could send you a link to my website. It was just here's a VHS tape of animations that I've done in college, and I sent it out to 50 different places all over the U.S. And basically, rule of thumb somebody told me was just for every 20 you get one reply. And I ended up getting 2 replies. The first reply, I showed up and they were like, actually, we just went out of business. Thank you for coming anyway. And I said, all right, well, thank you for your time. But the second place was Marvel Comics. And I don't even know why I sent them a demo reel because they were not doing computer animation. They made comic books. But I grew up reading comic books, and I'm like, babe, what happens? I have 50 of these VHS tapes. I'll just send them out. It was just a big box full of VHS tapes. I would send them out to anywhere who would reply. And I set up an interview. I showed up. I'm like, why would they want me here? I don't know. But I walked into this office where I was like, oh my God, this is Marvel Comics, and there's all this there's Spider-Man #1. I was freaking out. And they sat me down and they said, we're thinking, we do these 2D pieces of artwork that cost us $300, $300 per drawing to get these artists to do it. We were thinking maybe we could generate one 3D model and just always keep changing its pose and just have one file as opposed to keep paying. I'm like, I could do that. They're like, all right, you're in. I was like, yeah. And next thing I know, I spent that summer, just at Marvel Comics. And if it wasn't for the fact that I had taken graphic design classes and stuff like that at Pratt, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. I wouldn't have had an internship that summer. And instead, I spent my summer doing logos for Punisher and the Hulk and going to the movie premiere of the Hulk. And it was just the greatest experience ever. And so looking, and then in that year span that after I graduated college, it was really hard to find a job, and student loans were coming in, and I'm freaking out, and I'm like, what do I do? And so one of the first job that came in was graphic design work for Marvel, and I was like, all right, maybe I could do that, and then I would, because of that, led to other little graphic design jobs. I'm like, all right, that's paying the bills, all right, whatever pays the bills. And in that span of time, I got a job doing being a teacher's assistant at the New York Film Academy here in New York. And basically I was just working literally from 9 to 5, and which at the time I was like, this is miserable, I'm working, I don't want to work a 9 to 5. Me and my friends always dreaded working a 9 to 5 growing up, and now I'm like 9 to 5 and I'm there, but it was actually really gratifying because I was there actually helping students, you know, and it just felt really good, and that's something that I never forgot, how good it felt to like help students with their animation or for their this or that. And so then I finally got my foot in the door. I got my first job, and it was in advertising. It was here in New York. And the thing about like computer animation is that basically, if you want to work on movies, you go to California, and if you want to work here in New York, you kind of have to work on advertising. That changes here and there, but that's kind of a general rule of thumb. And so I started working in advertising, and I was like, yeah, I just worked on some AOL commercial, I just worked on a BMW commercial, and I'm like, I did it, I made it, and like, boom, I felt good. And then from there, I saw this like one amazing animated short at a studio here in New York, and I was like, I want to go work there now. And I like, you know, talked to somebody, I ended up working there. And so, just like that, I'm working in advertising, and I'm like, I did it. And as soon as I started working, I was just like, this amazing feeling, because I felt like I made it, but at the same time, all of a sudden, like, I wasn't going home ever. Work became my life. It was just, it happened so suddenly, because it's not like all of a sudden you take the job and they're like, you're gonna be working here 100 hours a week for the next couple of months. But instead it's just like, oh, well, this, you know, the deadline for this is now a little tighter than we thought, and they want some changes, and you're just like, okay, and next thing you know, you don't have a weekend, and you're just at work all weekend, and then like comes Monday, and you're like, I haven't had a day off in 7 days, and you're just like freaking out a little bit, and a couple of days go by, and you're like, what do you mean another job came in, or whatever, and next thing, and like all of a sudden, I realized something about my time in high school, and when I was working on little animated shorts. I realized that I was interested in telling stories, and somehow my thought was, oh, well, if I learn animation, then I could get to make stories. But no, you kind of end up working on other people's stories. And that's, you know, that realization just kind of hit me one day when I'm like, I'm just here as a tool to get other people's ideas off the ground. And I thought, what have I done? Like, what should have I done? I sort of, you know, the regrets, you know, maybe I should have been an art director, maybe I should have been a script writer, but I'm a terrible writer. And I thought, well, all right, well, I was sitting at work one day, and this is after many years of working in advertising, and all of a sudden I see, I got addicted to watching TED Talks, and I thought, well, the good thing about sitting here at work doing is I can just have a third monitor playing TED Talks all day, and I was just like, oh, this is amazing, this is great, this is, you know, this is, I actually felt like I was accomplishing something personally because I was learning about like neuroscience or something while I was, you know, animating or something. And I thought, and then all of a sudden one day, and at the time I thought, I need to do something about my situation, but I don't know what to do. Like I studied this, and this is what I've been working towards, and I have it, and it's a good job, but I'm not happy. This is not what I want to do. Along that track of time, I had all these like side hustles, as we're calling them today. You know, like when I was in, you know, it's kind of like the board games I would make as a kid. There was all these times where I had ideas, and I'm like, I just want to make this. Wouldn't that be cool? And like when I was in when I was right after college, I sent my little animated short to film festivals. It was like this animated short about 3 dudes sitting around a table who are very bored, and they start drinking, and all of a sudden they start like getting all rowdy, and then they find out it's non-alcoholic beer, and they just feel all silly, and it's like super simple, you know, it's 3 minutes, and it was just kind of like my calling card to get my job. And I sent that out to film festivals, and it got picked up by a couple of decent film festivals, nothing huge like Sundance, but Slam Dance, which is right next to Sundance. And that led to like a Hollywood producer calling me up and saying, hey, how would you like to pitch us an animated series for a TV show? And I was like, oh, I'm gonna be the next F. McFarlane. And I was like, I'm set, I'm done, okay, yeah. And I grabbed together a group of my friends, and I'm like, okay, I can't draw very well, but you can. And I can't write very well, but I can come up with the stories, and you write and all of a sudden, like I was getting together every week with my friends, and we're writing all this stuff or whatever, and we put together this pitch Bible, which I didn't know how to make a pitch Bible, but I Googled it, I'm like, pitch Bible, and I saw some pitch Bibles, and presented it to Disney, and they were like, nope, nah, it's not good. And I was crushed, but I said, can I try again? And they were like, yeah, of course. And so I tried again, and I spent another, like, this is like 2 years of my spare time just like trying to put together this like pitch Bible. So I put it back in front of them, and they were like, nah, everybody comes up with that idea. And I'm like, oh, God. And so at that point, I just went, you know what? I moved on, and as time went on, I realized they basically send that email out to every computer animation thing they see, like at any film festival, and they're like, why don't you pitch us something? We'll see if we like it. Which, lesson learned. But the lesson that I took away from that was like the collaborative work structure that I was like putting together for like just something that I was passionate about. I'm like, well, I don't know how to make an animated show, but I can find the right people to do it with. And so I just, who do I know? Who knows somebody that I need to know? Or I just went about it that way. And just kind of tried to reverse engineer the whole process from the pitch Bibles I was seeing online. And then, cut forward a little bit. And when I was working in animation and advertising, I was like, I was trying to figure out my exit strategy. Like, how do I leave this job and do things that I want to do? I don't know what to do. So one day I thought, I'm going to make a music video. Yeah, because then I could be a music video director, and those are short, and you can do whatever you want, really, and yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to do that. So this band got in touch with me, and they're like, hey, man, we want you to make a music video like that animated short you made in college. And I'm like, no, here's the deal. I do whatever I want, I take as long as I want, and I pick the song, and I'll do it. And they're like, okay. I was like, all right. And then it took me 14 months of my spare time, because sometimes I would just work for a month straight and not get home to work on it at all. And not to mention that even if you worked like till 10 p.m. or something, and then you went home, even if you worked till like 5 p.m., the last thing you want to do is go home and go back to work, except you're working on your own thing. It's just like, you're exhausted, you're tired. But so I, worked. 14 months later, I had a music video. And it did really well. I got on Wired, and like from there, kind of went viral. This is like this is like 2007, and that's the moment when I realized I don't have enough time to do the things that I want to do. So I need to buy myself time. That became my realization. And so what I did is I spent 2 years essentially just saving every single penny that I had. I cut all my costs down. I'm like, what is it that I need to survive? And that's it. And so I need rent, I need food, and everything else is just expendable. Cable, gone, this, that. I was just like, when I would go hang out with my friends, I would like take a flask, and instead of paying $10 for a drink, I was like, yeah, I'm having a good time. Whatever it took to just save, so that by the time the day that I turned 30, my goal was, on the day that I turned 30, I'm gonna quit my job, I'm done, I'm out, and I don't know what the plan is. I have no plan other than now I bought myself a year to survive frugally and figure it out. And I don't know how I'm gonna get there, but I'll figure it out, I just need time. And on my 30th birthday, leading up to that, I thought to myself, well, one of my frustrations in life has always been my memory. Like I have terrible memory. I always felt like, and I wanted to not forget this year off of my life. And I thought, well, what's something that I could do that even I, who's like, I feel is really lazy, like won't be too lazy to do every single day to remember this year off by. And I thought, well, now I have an HD camera in my pocket at all times. Why don't I just record 1 second every day for that year? And at the end of the year, I'm gonna have this 6-minute video that that's my year. And I'm like, that's how I'll remember my year off, because I can't remember what I did 10 years ago. And if I can't remember what I did this year off 10 years from now when I'm 40, I'm gonna be devastated. So I started recording 1 second of every day. And all of a sudden I started realizing during that time that like, recording 1 second of every day really forces you to like contemplate how you're using your time, because you're like, it'd be like 10 p.m. on a day, and I'm like, I haven't recorded anything today, and I think that's because I haven't done anything today. I just sat around on Facebook all day, and it's like, is that what I'm doing with like my year off? I'm just sitting here on my face. No. So that like changed my life instantly. I'm like, I need to use this 1 second every day need that I need to do this year to actually make every day meaningful. And next thing I know, I see like a posting from TED.com saying, hey, we're gonna have the first ever auditions for a TED Talk. And I'm like, whoa, I've only had an idea worth sharing. Oh well, man, I really wish I had an idea. And like a week later, I'm like, oh, what about this? I was recording my second, and I'm like, maybe this is it. Maybe I could give a talk about 1 second every day that I'm doing. And I put together like a 1-minute audition video. Next thing I know, I'm on a TED stage a month later, like not remember anything I wanted to say, which is why I never write anything down that I want to say ever anymore. I just like speak from the heart because that's the only way that I know how to get through it. Or else I just freak out and freeze and just stare blankly in the air, which I did during rehearsals. That's it. It was terrifying. And next thing I know, they call me up and they're like, in 8 months, we're gonna have you come up stage at the TED conference. And I'm like, oh, and they're like, and you can't tell anybody for 8 months. I'm like, oh, okay. And so 8 months later, I was on a TED stage, and I just went up there, and I was the most nervous I've ever been in my whole life, and I freaked out, and I shared this idea of 1 second every day, and next thing I know, I walk off stage, and I'm like, and that actually was exactly 6 days after my year off ended. So I walked off stage, I finally did it, and I'm like, okay, now what? I finished my year off. I guess I go back to work. I don't want to go back to work. This idea has changed my life. Maybe it could change other people's lives. So I thought, I'm going to make an app that makes it so anybody could just put together these videos on their phone. And I thought, well, I don't know how to do that. Like, I know what I would want to exist, but there's no way I can build it. So I'm an art guy, whatever, so I started putting together exactly what I imagined, and I started sending that out to whoever would look at it. And it took months to just like basically find developers that would say, hey, we could do that. And I'm like, great, how much does it cost? It's like $100,000. I don't have $100,000, what do I do? And and it was just like a matter of like a process of elimination of like, what's the next thing I can do to try to realize my idea? And eventually, long story short, it took months, but I put a Kickstarter together. I found the right developers who were passionate about the idea as much as I was. TouchLab actually who's sponsoring tonight, built a 1 second every day Android version, which just came out like exactly 2 months ago today, which is crazy. I can't believe time is going that fast. And it's just, and now I have all these like 3 or 4 other ideas that I want to make, but and they're once again things I've never done before. Like one of them's like a website for this, and I was like, I don't know how to do that, but it's just, I just took it one step at a time. I said, what is it that I can do today to get just one tiny step closer towards the thing that I want to build, and following that formula has changed my life more dramatically than I could ever explain. And I know we're short on time, so that's it. Thank you.